And I have returned from the hills of Scotland and are very happy to hear that Pat has signed up to tell us about some of his work with some of these gardens of peace and hope that have been springing up about town. So Pat, let me turn it over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say the three things that I'd like to cover, and I'm going to get some help, I think, at least from Ricky and possibly Martin. And the Natick Community Gardens that are now available in town is also part of what I'd like to make sure you're aware of. And then I would also like to get Carol's help, because what we did a couple of years ago is we called our little garden down at the church, across from the post office garden of hope. But then we added the concept of peace, because Hippolyte has been a great visitor and contributor to Natick and the cause to be the peace movement, which he started in Rwanda. And I've listed his website and stuff, but I think Carol can add some details there too, because we tried to incorporate that theme now in our gardens, the peace aspect of it. I have a short slideshow. I think it will probably take about 10 minutes. And it's just a bunch of photos of people working on the garden, starting back as early as 2014. So, Martin, how do I do this share the screen thing? I'm not sure.
I made you co-host, so just click on the green little arrow there.
Yeah. Click the bottom of your screen there, share screen.
All right.
And hope that
I see. Yeah, I got it right here. Do I double click it or something?
I just single click and
there you
go.
There
we go.
Hey, we got it.
You got it.
Guys, okay.
And you might want to also, where's the view?
To make it, if you go to the slideshow on your
little slideshow on the very, very bottom, there's a little picture of a screen.
A square.
Now, to the left of that, keep going left. To the left of the plus.
On the left. Okay.
A little tiny screen. You can barely see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, I think.
Slideshow, and then
just click it. There we go.
There we go. Very good.
Okay.
Hooray.
And you get little arrows there.
Yeah, let's see. I was just going to manually do it, but anyway, let me see if this works. Yeah, so at that time we were called Big Heart Little Feet, and we changed our name to Keep Natick Beautiful. And this is where I listed, I'm going too fast here. Hold on. I was trying to keep it less, I don't know how to control the pace. All right. But it just started out with that little strip along the post office. And then we've incorporated Hippolyte's mission in the last couple of years. And Hippolyte's website is really very interesting, but I think Carol can give you some detail. And then we tried to put out some of our produce in little shelves, asking people to come just pick it up. This one here is my grandson, Matthew. It was a couple of years ago, and he was helping me with the garden. Getting our sunflowers in there. Then one of the great young men here, he's now our garden coordinator this year, Ben Feldman. Okay, going a little faster. And Ben's helped me a lot over the last 3 years, and now he coordinates the efforts down there. He's doing a great job. Ben's also a Global Scholastic track star, and he's going to participate in the nationals, I think, in Oregon sometime next week. So then I have my two buddies for the last few years working with me a lot, Nate Lord there and Ben helping with the garden. Now, this is what the garden looked like back in when we first started back in 2015. Sorry, probably going a little fast. Anyway, this is the beginning of the garden of hope. And then, we tried all kinds of things. We've tried corn, and we've tried to mix it up with lots of different stuff. We're kind of in a war with mow and blow landscaping. And, we're trying to provide alternatives for people to try different ways of doing their yards and their landscapes. And I went to the time with the principal of the high school, Brian Harrigan, and I asked him if maybe we could, there's a beautiful area in the front of the school, New Natick High School. It's great for a community garden. But I was unsuccessful in trying to persuade him to transform that into a huge community garden that with seniors and everybody, students could. They are reluctant to try anything that innovative.
How long ago was that, Pat, that you ran?
It's about 3.5 years ago. It was actually Peter Sanchioni was.
I wonder if the tenor might have changed in that time.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
also, I think, a new principal at the high school, or
It's
going
possible.
to be.
I begged him, I was trying everything. And I said, well, we could put one right outside your window here and you could have it right to look at because the principal's window looks right out there. But there's quite a, sadly, there's a very strong lobby or force in our culture that is in love with mow and blow landscaping, grassy skirts, where the groundskeepers can just blow and mow everything off the planet. And they like to keep those monocultures, which are, huge problem everywhere. And Brian is not on today, but he's been working on this for quite a while too, and try to keep people from using all those chemicals on their lawns. And the whole thing about pollinators is one of the foundations of what we're trying to do. I think, sorry for flipping back and forth, but US beekeepers have lost 30% of their colonies every year since 2006. It's a huge environmental tragedy. So that's kind of, the philosophy about the garden as far as mowable landscaping and diversifying the landscape. This is the team, last year's team, Ben, Nate, Riley, who's now president of Keep Natick Beautiful. I've retired. And Ellen Barber was our coordinator last year. So let's see, I'll just keep going here. Yeah, that's Ellen and me doing a selfie. But Riley's sister made us a bunch of nice signs. She's an artist, aspiring artist, I guess. So she made us a bunch of signs for the garden. And so we've got them down there. This is, some of you will recognize yourselves as I took you guys on a little tour about 3 years ago to look at the garden. And these are photos from last year. And well, now we're back to Coffee with Purpose. This slideshow covers a few things. So I started out with Coffee with Pat, and then we went to Coffee with a Purpose. And we did it down at this Common Street. And then I was trying to get everybody fired up about keeping Natick beautiful with a map of where all the litter hotspots were. And then my grandson and I, we tried to promote the idea of everybody going, sorry for the back and forth, going to reusable bottles and reusable bags and things. And that's our garden of the pumpkin plants. So few more shots of the garden. And then there are the pollinators. They're pretty cool to watch. On the milkweed, a lot of milkweed. Yeah, monarch population has decreased alarmingly. So that's one of the nice things about the garden. You got plenty of butterflies. And then there's my team. This is the Conaway sibling team. My brother Tim and Sally. They've helped me over the years quite a bit. I recruited my grandson Matthew there help me, and I think that could be Annie, who's one of the active gardeners now. And then we got the children's, the Common Street Children's Circle engaged in the garden. They worked on it with us a couple years ago. This is like before COVID, I guess. And they added all kinds of interesting little imaginative fairy structures to the garden. And then I've been working on this one at my house too. And you can come by anytime and check it out. And here there's the team that we set up little greenhouses for the seedlings. Get them started like even as early as March. So Ben and Nate are the ones who helped me build all this stuff and set it up, get it going early spring. And Ben, our coordinator this year, he came up with this interesting idea. We use the wheelbarrow planters. So what we've done is plant things in the wheelbarrows, and Ben's moved them around to good locations at Common Street, but where the sun is strongest.
What a cool idea.
And let's see, almost done here. So I made a kind of a little sign for the garden at my house. It's this year's garden. And I've kind of built the stick fencing around each bed. I don't know, just a stick fence guy. And we have a water capture program here at Pumpkin Pine, which kind of works well. I have two of these large rain totes, and they hold 275 gallons to connect it to our downspouts. And then we have 4 of these rain barrels that are 65 gallons each. So when it's all full, we have about 800 gallons of water captured around my house. And typical suburban home has an enormous amount of water that comes off the rooftop. So I think Jillian has championed these things too for residents in Natick, you know, to capture water, and it improves stormwater runoff quite a bit. So this is the last couple of things. The Natick Community Gardens, and I'll let Ricky talk about, but now it's very exciting. There are 152 plots throughout the town. JJ Lane Park off Spain Street, Eric Markman Gardens over here off Hartford, Navy Yard Field Gardens, and now the Erica Ball Community Gardens behind the mansion at Marion Morse, the old mansion. And they're ADA accessible raised bed plots that are very easy for people, but you know, like garden standing up or you're sitting down. And there's a community garden coordinator. I just took this information off the website. So you can check, you can get a lot more information. And this is just about it here. I was gonna have Ricky and Martin talk a little bit about the 8 or 10 year, I don't call it, well, struggle to get community gardens in Natick. Because in Natick it sort of defaults to more of an athletic identity. And most of our fields and places were sports fields. But now we have a little bit of a diversity in our public spaces, thanks to Martin, Ricky, those folks. So this is just a random thing. This is who you contact about the garden, if you'd like. And that's it.
That's excellent. Pat, would you be able to send me a copy of that presentation so I can put some of the links?
Yes. Yeah, I could just say it's one of those, yeah, what do you call it? It's a PowerPoint thing. Yeah, I can send that to you.
Yeah, if you just email it to me, that would be great.
No, I just stop share. I just go like
Yeah,
that.
stop sharing.
You
Right.
got
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm going to ask, you know, Ricky and Martin and Carol to chime in here a little bit more and flesh out some of the details. That was just kind of an overview.
Oh, that's great. I think in terms of community gardens in Natick, I didn't have much of a role, but I can tell you what happened about 10 years ago or so. I think it was, I can't remember what year. My mind is not a good, my memory is not that good, but at one point, the Natick Community Organic Farm was offering community garden plots in their land. They weren't farming it all themselves. And then at one point at the end of a season one year, they surprised everybody by sending a letter to all the community gardeners saying that they're taking back all the plots for the following year. They're going to use all the land for their own gardening. And people, the community gardeners, were kind of left in the lurch. They had nothing. Coincidentally, this was the same time that the town transferred the community garden land to the Conservation Commission, and the community garden was the community farm basically was leasing at no cost the garden from the Conservation Commission, and Conservation Commission was in fact subsidizing some of the staffing for the community garden. So it was basically a partnership. But at that point, the Concom didn't feel right about interfering with the internal decisions of the community garden, so they didn't question the decision to take away those community gardens from the public. But Matt Gardner, who of course is was and is the head of the Concom, worked with Dave Dimmock on our committee to try to find other locations. And I think a bunch of other people from some community gardeners got involved in that too. There was kind of a little coalition that was looking for locations. And that was around the time J.J. Lane Park was being planned. And a number of us advocated that in the plan for J.J. Lane Park in West Natick that they include a community garden, which they did. And that became the first community garden. And then I kept going. I think there was a pretty viable group then that was advocating for the community gardens, and they got the others, the one on Hartford Street. Then by the time the Navy Yard Park was under design, I was actually on the design committee for Navy Yard, and I was not the only one advocating for community gardens. There were a number of people on that committee who believed community gardens were the thing to do, and so that was always part of the design for the Navy Yard field, which is technically called, oh no, I can't remember the name of it. It has another name.
Navy Yard at Whitney Field now,
Yeah,
I think.
Whitney Field at Navy Yard or something.
Yeah.
And so became the third. Yeah, Hartford Street was also under development at that time. And then the Ricky Baldwin, you'll have to tell us about that one. But that's an exciting addition that just happened.
Well,
Yeah.
my let's see, my involvement started about the time that Matt Gardner took over. The process of developing community gardens, and it was peripheral. I was just a member of the committee that was interested in seeing them proliferate throughout that. And I was more involved with the Hartford Street garden because Jay was working at a place to turn with the art builders, and they were doing some lamp and rail renovations for a place to turn when the idea of the garden came up with Eric and his church. And and Jay got involved in planning, laying out the garden on the computer, and then trying to set up a water system. And my only contribution at that point was getting in touch with the temple and their social action committee to see if they would participate in the garden. And I was successful there. And we got Paula Jacobs from the temple, who was very active in running the schedule for the watering system at the garden. And that became a very wonderful collaboration as the garden was being built. We had the young people from from the temple, from the Presbyterian Church, from St. Paul's, from the Elliott Church in South Natick, and they all got together and they did the painting of all the raised boxes with a preservative so that they wouldn't rot out. And this was all done, I think, at a Thanksgiving weekend, which unfortunately we were unable to attend because we were in South Carolina. But it was a wonderful event. Oh, and I forgot the mosque in Framingham. They also participated in putting together the garden. So it was a wonderful, wonderful event. And the garden, also the community farm participated. And that was the first time, I think, that we had Jillian involved in setting up the garden. So it was a real collaborative event. And there are 4 plots there that are dedicated to the work of the interfaith group. They run those plots, and the produce from those plots goes to a place to turn so that they have fresh produce. And I think we were also giving to the Natick Soda Center, and because they at one point they had about 400 tons of produce coming from that garden. So it was wonderful. And it continues to thrive. And so that was my first actual experience, hands-on with the garden. And he dedicated it in honor of Eric Markman. Without whom that garden would not exist. His church and his parishioners really supported the garden, and it added to the wonderful work that that church has done between dedicating a place to turn and the community garden. And so they really are active as a community in itself. And also we've had the gun buybacks there in their parking lot. We've had 2 gun buybacks there. So, and then as far as the garden name in my honor, I still can't believe it. That was principally the work of Julie, who is a gem for this town. I can't praise her too much. I don't know quite how it came out, but it turned out I was the 5th column in the Housing Authority when it came to promoting the garden. And I guess when they thought I was leaving, they decided to name it for me. I don't know how that came about, but it's a terrific honor. And I've watched it as it's been planned, and the addition of yet another community garden prompted Gillian to look for a coordinator. Now that we have that many gardens, it makes sense to have a staff person who was originally part-time and now I think is full-time. We have 4 or 5 functioning gardens now, and it makes sense to have someone with
Vicki,
knowledge.
do you or Martin know who the coordinator is?
Her name is Sarah, and I have her last name somewhere. And,
Yeah, I tried to find it. I guess I couldn't.
well, I have it. I can look for it afterwards. And she is terrific. She really is. And she works seamlessly with Jillian. Jillian found the funds for the garden. And that's what made it happen. And we're thrilled. At first, I was sad that that huge tree that there was one huge tree, it must be at least 100 years old, had to be cut down in order to shade the to remove the shade to allow for enough sunlight for the plots to thrive. But eventually I caved and they cut down the tree. But in its place, I don't know who's been down there, but as part of the grant, they hired a sculptor who did a chainsaw sculpting of 2 sets of hands holding on to each other, symbolizing unity and strength. And it's a really lovely
Yeah, it's
view
really impressive.
of the
Go down
tree.
and take a look at it. Yeah.
And you know, from what I understand, they intend to dedicate the garden at harvest time in August. So, but anyhow, it's a great honor, and regardless of how I leave this town, whether it's to go to Orchard Cove or in the box, it's a great honor, and it means a lot. So
Can I ask a really fundamental question? Apologize for my ignorance, but Pat, in your presentation, I think you said there are like 152 plots now. So
Yeah.
how does it work? Do
Yeah.
individual people sign up for a plot?
Yes.
And then what
Yes.
happens with the produce from that plot? All right. What I don't know.
Well, I think you got to apply for it through the town and the coordinator.
Yeah.
There's not a huge fee, but then that's your plot and you can garden it however you want. They don't like anybody to use chemicals or, you know, harsh things on it. It's supposed to be natural. They also, I think you can just pick your own, you know, vegetables or produce, and that's it. And there's so many people with shady yards in Natick, you know, these community gardens are a great opportunity for them.
So in addition to producing produce for individual people's purposes, do these gardens also generate produce for the food pantry or other things like that?
Yes.
And how does
yes.
that happen? Do people just donate the proceeds from their individual plot?
No, there are, I think, 4 plots in the garden that are farmed by either clients of the food pantry or volunteers for the food pantry, and their produce goes to the Natick Service Council food pantry.
No. Okay.
That's dedicated. Then if anybody wants to give part of theirs, they're free to do that. We have a reduced rate for clients of the food pantry and for seniors of the House of the Old Farm. I think the cost of renting a plot is $75 for the year, but there's a reduced rate for seniors, and there I think there may be a subsidized rate. That's, and then there's the regular rate for just regular folks, and we're very excited to have it downtown where people can walk to the garden and not have to drive and create more traffic with cars. But there's a parking lot that's accessible to the garden.
We might want to try, you know, now that we're getting through COVID, one of these days, Doug or Martin, we could have a little maybe Carrie could organize it. A little a CWAP tour of three of these gardens, because Carrie already took us on one that was really spectacular. The home or the family on Route 135, West Central Street.
Oh,
And so, we ought to do a little down the road, maybe a
Yeah,
tour.
we should. Yeah, I was thinking of that. When we started this, when we got this theme for today, I thought it'd be nice to be on site, but we didn't think of it in time. It's
Yeah, yeah.
theoretically possible to do a Zoom from the road, but I'm not sure how it works. We very experimental.
Yeah,
it
it is possible. Sarah and I were on a walking tour of Edinburgh right from our couch a couple weeks ago. The fellow in Edinburgh had a Zoom camera.
Yeah,
But I mean, we could stay on
I
this
think a lot
theme. We don't have a speaker for next week, so if weather permitting, we could follow up this subject with a visit to one or two of these, if people wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something.
I would like to recommend the little garden of peace and hope down at Common Street right now is looking awfully good. And Carol, you have some stories about that. Annie Eisenberg and some of the children helping plant. It's a great place to start and get a concept of the variety that's going on. And, Carol, talk a little bit about what's going on there.
You need to come off mute, Carol. You're on mute, Carol. There you
How's
go.
that? Okay, so just last week, I was there at the garden of Hope and Peace, and Annie and I were doing some weeding, and then came along Maggie Sky from Peace Flags, and she was picking some of the beans off the bean, I guess bush you'd call it. And she said, oh yes, she said, I'm going to make my dinner with those tonight.
Nice.
And then we started eating them right from the bush. Oh, they were sweet and delicious. So, that's one way that I observed how the garden is being used. It's very exciting. It's lovely to know that people can come along the street and just have something for lunch. So, but
It has worked that way. It's unbelievable.
yeah, but some things, we need a few more signs, because when it comes to lettuce, you don't just pull the whole lettuce out of the ground, you cut the lettuce leaves. So we noticed that was a little bit of a problem. But we're all learning. I love the conversations here because there's so many interconnections between all of us and experiences that are fun to hear. And so, but Hippolyte, some of you, I don't know how many of you have met him, but one of the ways that he deals with his Be the Peace organization in Rwanda, because he works with villages and he wants to get the survivors and the perpetrators of the genocide building trust together and working together. So he started thinking about ways that he could do this. He could get them working together. And one of them is through gardens. Another might be building blocks or building houses for each other. So that's where his gardens are used in Rwanda to get the two different, the once enemies of each other working together to build new relationships, building together some project that they can all share together. So that's what his intention is. And then when I was thinking about the Garden of Hope, when it was merely the Garden of Hope, one day I went down to the garden area, and who was there but Pat and Ellen Barber. And I recognized Ellen, but I couldn't figure out who she was, because it turns out I knew her when she was in middle school. And one of the things that Pat used to do is take Wayland students on the Sudbury River or other activities and adventures as well, but the one where I remember most chaperoning was on the Sudbury River when we were all in kayaks or canoes. And these were, of course, middle school kids, and I'm supposed to be chaperoning, but they're standing up in the canoes. And I'm trying to say to them, you know, please, maybe it's safer, you know, you don't want to necessarily fall in. Well, you know what kids are like. And do they really listen to us adults all the time? I don't think so. They're having fun. But anyway, fortunately, no one had any accident of that nature. But one other just funny thing that I remember about these trips was one day a group of us were going down the Sudbury River, and up ahead, I thought I noticed that there were ducks, and these ducks were upside down in the water. So I thought, oh, they're eating, okay. Well, but then I said to myself, no, they're in there. Their heads are in the water, just too long to be just eating. Well, it turns out they weren't real ducks. They were fake. And the hunters were behind. They're supposed to, the job of these ducks that are upside down, they're supposed to attract real ducks. See? Okay. And sure enough, the hunters were behind the bushes with their guns. So when we figured out what was going on, we yelled, wait, don't shoot. We're coming down the river. So, oh my God. And one time on another trip, we started a little bit late in the afternoon. Well, by the time we got to the site where we were going to camp out and stay overnight, it was dark. And so have you tried pitching tents in the dark and trying?
Oh, yes.
Yes, and cooking in the dark? Well, this should bring back memories, and Ricky, because oh my God, it was every time we went on one of these trips, there was some kind of adventure. But one of the things the kids did that I thought was fantastic was they were singing. They always seemed to have a song to sing while they were paddling and looking to the sights. And so it was really a very joyous, very fun experience. And Pat, whenever you do this again, I know that, but if it should ever, I'm going to try and come. Yes. So
Well, this
I
is
think you were
totally off
describing one
topic.
trip was actually on the Connecticut River.
that
That
was
one
it.
we paddled and paddled and paddled. It was dark by the time we got to
Well, this
a
is
long
off
river.
topic, but I have to share this story here in Kids and Canoes. So when we still had 3 kids, the older 2 started agitating, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have a canoe? And at that point, none of them knew how to swim. And so we said at the beginning of the summer, if at least one of you learns how to swim, so that we don't have, we put them in life jackets, but still we said, we don't want 2 people who know how to swim to have to deal with 3 people who don't. So if one of you learns how to swim, we'll get a canoe. Well, the older 2 took that to heart, and they both learned to swim that summer. So we went to LL Bean and we got the biggest canoe they make. It's enormous. It's like a warship. And then the next year, or the couple of years after that, we had our 4th. And the canoe was big enough for all 6 of us to pile into when the kids were small. And our youngest was a year old and was not super happy being in the canoe. So the way we could keep him happy was to sing. So we had mounted on the front of the ship a pirate flag. We're going down the Saco River with the pirate flag, all singing to keep the baby entertained, and the river cleared out ahead of us. It's like nobody wanted to be near the Hannahs and their pirate boat. But
Weren't the older kids also equipped with super soakers?
I think the
to
older
ward
kids
off
had
any
had
boarders?
super soakers to keep the boarders from,
Yeah.
prepare to be boarded or destroyed, and they were
You were well armed.
guarding the ship. So I know that's off topic, but
Anyone looking for a serene experience on the river that day
Yeah.
needed to
They
stay
were-
away from us.
they were out of luck.
How wonderful.
Just
Um,
know that in terms of the Saco River, they're still kayaking and having river boats, because I was up in Maine the last 4 days and we went over the Saco, And there were so many kids at the river swimming and boating. It was just wonderful.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
a
beautiful, beautiful river.
great river.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
In terms of gardens and sites for gardens, and you were talking about, the Garden of Peace. A light bulb just went up in my head, and I'd like to share it with everyone and see if someone can pick up the ball, no pun intended, and run with it. There's a place where the Native American Memorial is on, is it West Central Street? Or is
Pond
it
Street.
On
Pond
Street,
Street?
yeah, just out
Okay,
of outside.
That area where the memorial is, I think that would be a wonderful site for native plants. There are lots of invasive species that I'm becoming aware of when I hike with Dick and Jill Miller. Jill is always pointing out all the invasive species, but she also points out the native plants. And if there are people who are interested in inclusion and our Native American history, it seems to me that would be a perfect site for a Native American garden.
Yeah, I would also like to add one more thing. I didn't put it into this presentation, but Carrie and I, about was it 2 or 3 years ago, we went to the Garden in the Woods up in Framingham, and we saw a presentation. It was really cool. I forgot her name, but I have it here somewhere on my computer. But it's the title is Diversify Your Lawn, and it encourages people to do all kinds of really neat things with their yards and lawns, attracting butterflies and pollinators, and just getting rid of the grassy skirt monoculture. And do you remember that, Carrie? That
I
presentation?
do, yeah. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that, but I do remember, it's pretty
Yeah.
instructive. Yeah.
I think she's
They have a lot of education programs. The Garden in the Woods, they've rebranded themselves as the Native Plant Trust, but
okay.
we've been members for years.
Oh,
and we
now
get these-
maybe they would be the resource to help in doing such a garden around the monument.
Yeah, I think the other thing we definitely want to check with the Native community.
Yeah.
Because that, I can't remember if that may be a burial ground or had been in the past. I don't know any details, but I would absolutely want to include the Native.
Yeah, I
community.
think that would be a really good diversity project. Something real that people can see and appreciate.
Mm.
The more I think of it, the more I like the idea.
Yeah, but in terms of the Garden in the Woods, they have a lot of educational programs, and at least now in the age of COVID, sort of a mix of in-person and virtual, but a lot of stuff on native gardening or native plant gardening and pollinators and some really good stuff. And they also have a nursery. You can buy plants there for your garden, which is kind of cool. So yeah, they're a good resource.
There was one other thing I should have added. There have been a number of school gardens started, and one was pretty successful. I think it's still in operation at Benham. I knew some of the folks who did that about 8 years ago. They got out all that started. I believe there's a garden at Memorial, a small one. I'm not sure about Lilja, but I know that there were groups that were trying to, get a garden started. There was one at Kennedy, but when they built the new Kennedy, it had to be taken out. So sometimes, occasionally you get a teacher who's very, committed to gardening and gardening with children and so forth.
I
So,
know there was some activity like that. They used to have a caretaker who was a wonderful gardener. and he did a lot of planting over at Benton. And I don't, and I know that they had some piece of the curriculum for one of the grades that, you know, showed the kids how seeds grow, and they had plants that they tended and watched the growth and understood how things work. And I don't know if it ever ended up being an actual garden, but I think there might be the seeds of one there.
Cindy, you wanted to ask something or say something?
So, I have a garden in my backyard, and the dahlias, I usually forget until the end of May or early June. And this year, it's like, oh my gosh, I put them in 2 days ago. I have extras. The ones that are extra have these tiny little shoots, and so I need a place to put them because I can't dig any more holes. I got enough. I still have to put all my house plants out. Would the spiritual center, is there room there to put in like 4 baby little, well, they'll be bigger. I think they get like 3 or 4 feet tall, purple dahlias.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could, Ben.
Can I just go put them in?
Yeah,
Do I have to talk to
You could
somebody?
come to my house and put some in.
yeah,
Where
I
is
think
it?
you could do that. Yeah, you could do that, or just mention it to Ben.
Ben,
Put his
okay,
email on the on that slideshow, which I'll send.
yeah, okay. Okay. Because I actually went yesterday to hear Deb Mitchell, and then I met Sophia, who showed me the little garden she and her husband planted by one of the pillars by the front when you
Oh,
walk
nice.
in.
Yeah.
And then all the marigolds, they all needed deadheading. So we just bent down, and she thought they needed scissors, but we figured out how to clear that up. So I was thinking I could put them in there, but then because of this morning, I don't know where it would be best to put them.
Speaking of scissors, I don't know if people saw in the chat.
I did.
Marion had a great idea about
Yeah.
putting some scissors on a piece of twine in the garden. It with a little instruction about use those, don't rip the plants out.
I think that there's already a little box of tools by the big rhododendron. on the
Oh,
corner.
is there? Okay.
We've got a few things already staged there. I believe that you could find some flippers or something.
My wife is a part of the CSA at Tangerini's farm, which is always out in front at the at our farmers market. But they have their farmers in Millis and the CSA, and they have little knives that they instruct everybody to use to take out the greens and not to just pull them out. And
Yeah.
people seem to learn how to do that pretty easily.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, I hope that maybe
Can somebody post Ben's email address to the,
yes,
chat?
I'll do that. And
great.
the other thing that Brian has been working so hard on with the lake, I think that we got to get people to imagine their yards differently than the sort of like super traditional Scott's chemicals, Scott's monoculture lawns. I mean, we can get people to, and I see it happening here and there. Some of the private yards. Well, Carrie's yard is a great example too. So people who've done stuff that is moving away from mow and blow landscaping.
I think it's, also important to emphasize you can do it in stages.
Yeah.
Like, over the years that we've lived in our house, we've taken plots of land and converted them away from lawns. We still have lawn, but it's probably only half of our property, and the rest of it is gardens and shrubbery and what have you. And but it's it's a process. You don't have to just say, hey, I'm never going to have a lawn, and rip everything up and get overwhelmed by it. You can do it piece by piece and so forth. So.
Brian, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm not to jump topics here, but I'll give you a little report if you'd like about the state park's new ramp and deck.
Yeah, you see it when you drive by and you just wonder what's going on.
They had a ribbon cutting ceremony Friday that they've been holding off the opening of that because because they wanted to have a ribbon cutting ceremony. It's been, oh, Memorial Weekend, it was ready and they didn't open it, and they just chose this Friday for their event. And I've been curious about it as it came to fruition, and their information was, we don't know who's going to be there. We're really, nobody knows. And so at 11 o'clock Friday, they finally said, well, we really don't know, but they had their little lectern set up, and they were kind of, rain was forecast. And at the 1 o'clock time, the only people there, it was a very small crowd, and the majority of the people were the DCR agents from different departments. And it was a quick little presentation of, look what we've done, isn't this great? And thank you for letting us do it. Nothing was said about water quality. It was a real low-key, quick event. And it was pretty disappointing from my point of view. As I talked to the park managers, which Natalia was the who I spoke to,
Yeah.
in spite of the new facilities,
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I left it upstairs. Sorry.
it's manpower and money. Even though they've got the new facilities, they find it kind of as a burden to them, because they have to be caretakers for it, and they're swamped with responsibilities as it is. And you know, it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't situation from their point of view. But I was really really disappointed on how you know, 3 big weekends were held off for the public use because of the governor going to be there for the opening. And when the Friday showed up, it was, oh, the governor's busy. There's the MBTA crisis and he can't be here. And so we're just going to do this for our own little organization and be happy. And it's like, ooh, okay, that's kind of the logic that's being used for a lot of that effort, because the rail trail gate, you know, that's open all week, and then they close it on weekends. The new parking spaces and some of the existing ones now, the big space right there by the gate supposedly is going to be reworked before long for a new drainage system. And you know, I just, it's so disappointing that that they don't have a more proactive approach. Their mantra is no money, no manpower.
Was Dave Linsky there? Brian?
No.
Or
Josh,
anybody like a select person from Natick?
Josh Ostroff was it,
Uh,
pretty much. There was a gentleman from Framingham, I forget his name, and you know, it was DCR people. It was a lot of the people that were
Was it
involved.
Charlie? Was it Charlie Zazinski?
I don't know Charlie, and I don't.
Well, he's the mayor now in Framingham.
No, he wasn't there. So, you know, it's just kind of, I think, business back to normal. They do have the bathrooms open now, the concrete bathroom buildings, and I'd give them a B for cleanliness and usability. And you know, it's
Brian, we're not yet at a point. I mean, we were a couple of weekends, but wait till that temperature goes up to 90. I don't know if they're going to be ready. I noticed they just closed the park basically.
yeah.
And I see these families wandering all around everywhere trying to find somewhere.
Yes, you know, the amount of use, and for the DCR not to have a boat on the lake as a rescue opportunity, or you know, to take care of issues. There's just so many things there that are underserved. I think, you know, safety and the whole lifeguard situation. You know, no lifeguards yet.
Brian, did you and Tom connect about Tom's correspondence with the
Yep, we're going to
acting
take a call
commissioner?
tomorrow.
Oh, great. Good. Okay.
Tom who? I'm sorry.
Tom Daly here on the call.
Yeah.
Tom, you might want to describe for the group what that communication was.
Well, I took
Brian's 14-page document. And I sent it to the acting commissioner. And I got no response, but I also I get notified of anything happening in DCR. I get little emails, and they always have a name and an email address. So one of them, I said, "Hey, what happened to that document?" I said, and I got no reply. I said about a week and a half ago, I got a reply from Jennifer. He said, "Well, we found your document, and we want to talk to you about it." So she was on vacation, and so we agreed at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And she doesn't know Brian, but she's going to.
Force of nature.
Great.
So we're going to meet with her and talk.
Would you care to, set aside a coffee with a purpose time to give us a report about it?
Sure. Brian's tried to gather some other people from his group so that we can put. I want to do a conference call as opposed to just one-on-one with me. Right now, Jennifer she probably is going to be back on the office tomorrow. She's gone on vacation. And I just want to set up a conference call as opposed to just one-on-one.
Well,
Great.
God bless you guys. And I just want to reemphasize to you what Brian's been trying to do. This is Natick. And you can see the Lake Constituent is a good, I would say 30%, 20, 30% of our town. It's probably the most amazing resource we have. And, Brian's killing himself trying to get people fired up about the water quality and all these other issues, which I think is really important. It would seem like, almost everybody in Natick should be fired up and excited about their lake, which is an incredible resource. Of course, Framingham and Wayland are also part of it. And I have just one other comment, Doug, that it's not about the lake, but later. So I'll say it for them.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Tom and Brian, thanks for getting that call arranged. Yeah, I think we'll be real interested to hear how it goes, and good luck with it.
Well, I'll share that I've gone to Senator Brownsberger's office, and you speak to the aides, they get back to you. And my latest effort, they shuffled me back to Karen Spilka's office. They said, she's the one that's got the influence here. And, you should be speaking to her and her group, and which we are. We're trying to get this into a package that we can do a presentation for her. And she knows that we're working on this. And it just kind of, to me, it boils down to the same thing: money, manpower, and they can't change the channel. And their leadership is saying, well, do what you can do. And they're doing a little, but there's so much room for improvement there. And what they've done, on the holidays, they closed the access gate to the North Pond, the canoe put in there, which they put the new gravel bed and created a nice parking space. But what's the logic for them that Memorial Day, they close the gate? They leave it open on the other sides of it. And it says, why at the holidays? And during the 4th, they usually close that gate. It's like, I just don't get it. That's supposed to be a public holiday. And then they choose to close the gate because they're,
understaffed.
Yeah, understaffed and overpowered with use. And the people, if the gate's closed, they go park in the cemetery or the side streets. They come back and walk into it. So I just don't understand the way the DCR handles their problems. And, the swimming lifeguards, they upped the rate from the $15 to $21 and a $500 signing bonus if they come next year. But that affects the manpower that the people come in at $15 an hour, which are the regular summer help, say, we're not gonna, we'll make $6 more and be lifeguards.
Hmm.
And
Well,
so,
there's a real shortage of lifeguards. A lot of public pools
Yeah.
aren't opening
Yeah.
because they can't find lifeguards. So it's not just the park.
Yeah. I haven't heard that.
I just want to bring people's attention to two more posts that Deb Marion put in the chat on Lake Cochituate. She was saying that there may be some synergies with the Natick group, maybe in terms of getting the message out. There might be others in Natick interested in the Lake Cochituate issue. And she also was commenting that she participated in No Mow May and creating kind of a pollinator area in wilder area in her lawn. We happened to visit her house a couple of weeks ago and it's beautiful. But possibly in for next May, we could kind of help drive that as a more community event, get more folks doing that. She has a link in the chat, which I'll put in the recap to a town in Wisconsin that went in for this in a real big way, I guess. I haven't read the details, but sounds exciting.
I think also in terms of Natick, back to the original topic of today, one of our actions that we're looking for trying to get people to log various eco-friendly actions they're taking. If we could get a focus on gardens, created organically without chemical pesticides and what have you, and maybe, have some beautiful photographs of some of the existing gardens, that might be a cool thing to have on the Natick site as well.
I learned something yesterday from friends who are part of the Marlborough Garden Club. And they said that what they're doing is in the spring before they plant, they are putting down cardboard, not cardboard that has things written on it, but just plain cardboard, and then planting and then mulching. And apparently the cardboard is biodegradable, and it keeps the weeds down fantastically. So if you're planting, you're doing, I'm not sure the mechanics since I haven't gardened in forever, but using the cardboard that way to keep down the weeds, especially in the garden that you have around the church, I think that would be really helpful if you can do that at the beginning of the season. So that's for next year.
I was just going to say one thing about gardening, school gardens. There's a phenomenal school garden at Framingham High School, because Framingham High School, if you've ever been there, it's laid out in these large courtyard that are surrounded by the school, the classrooms. This food service director was really an innovator. He took one of those enormous courtyards and turned it into this amazing garden and used it for his cafeterias and his the food service in the Framingham schools. And he is dynamo. I don't know if he's still there, but I had him come and speak to the group that was kind of, there was a group called Natick Rose. I don't know, Vicky, maybe you remember that, but they were parents at Benham and some of these schools that were trying to get gardens going. And this guy, Brian, he came and he explained to us and showed us what he did. He had so many kids involved, students involved in this garden. And then he had his whole sophisticated system of composting. All the cafeteria waste was composted and taken out, like it was an amazing system. The other thing that I think I've seen it on Doug and maybe Martin, you've had it on a couple of times. I believe there's a group in the Metro West suburbs, perhaps, that's called Quiet Communities. And they're an advocacy group that's really working hard to limit the mow and blow, that goes on most suburbs. And I think that I've even got a thing now in Natick where the Montblow guys aren't supposed to start before 8 a.m. in the morning. Although around here, I hear them sometimes at 7:30. It's amazing. They might have 3 of those huge platform mowers and guys with 3 or 4 with backpacks. And I'm talking about fall too, with the leaf thing and everything. They have these professional landscaping companies. They make an incredible amount of noise. And it's really bad for the environment, but that's another subject. But that's sort of related to this obsession with the green lawn, the grassy skirt.
It
Yeah.
is so common these days for people to have landscapers blowing their leaves around in the fall.
Yeah.
I have had people stop when I've been raking in my front yard with a rake in the fall, and people come by and it's like, wow, you're raking?
Yeah.
I never see anybody raking.
One of our neighbors, I just went by and she was mowing her lawn, but I heard nothing. And it was an electric lawnmower and it was a plug-in. I couldn't believe how quiet. I didn't know it was on. It was unbelievable.
Our son has one of those electric lawnmower and it's very quiet.
Yeah.
I have one.
Oh, great. I guess it's not new. It was new to me, but I'm glad that it exists. But there was one Sunday when I went outside and it was quiet and I was quite shocked because every weekend morning and most weekday mornings, you get up in the suburbs and it's noisy. It's all those lawnmowers, blah, 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 all day long.
Yeah, well, so we have people in our neighborhood use their ride mowers as leaf vacuumers or whatever. They blast. And they don't do it at night. They'll do it at like 7 o'clock at night. They're rounding up their leaves. It's really loud.
Rick, you got to go off mute there. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I think I proposed once a while back, but we could Quiet Communities in Lincoln as a nationwide research reach. The wheel doesn't have to be reinvented. We could have somebody come and speak if people would like to on Monday morning about the research, about the efforts in local towns in Brookline and Newton and Wellesley and Lincoln and Lexington and Arlington. About the first steps that have been taken in many towns to regulate this, to certain seasons, certain hours, not after school when kids are out. They've got all the data on how harmful this is, not just to people and to people trying to work and homes and kids playing, but also to lawns, as Pat's one of his points earlier was. I'd like to see, some education on that offered in town. And, a coalition of people who are interested in bringing this to whatever channel it is through the select board to town meeting to have, to make some progress in regulating the hours, at least, and the seasons and the days. So this is not going on holidays and weekends and, after school. I mean, it's insane. And people don't, as you said, Pat, people don't know. People are, they come out, they buy a house, they've never taken care of a lawn, they're both working, nobody has time to do it, they hire a company, and bingo, that's what happens.
Yeah. Rick, would you be willing to reach out to Quiet Communities?
Yeah, certainly, I will.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Great.
So there's a couple of issues that are maybe independent, but certainly related, which is certainly the environmental reasons not to do all that.
Right.
To reduce it, but also the noise issue, which there's this. I think we got burned a few years ago. Those of us who've been in town meeting about 5 or 6 years, Gene Williams and Ostra for 3 straight town meeting sessions had noise regulation bylaws, and each one of them got shot down by, I guess you'd call them sort of no government people, no regulation people that sort of felt that people should be able to make all the noise they want whenever they want. It's the free will, like have guns whenever they want, basically sort of let people do what they want. And the regulations got shot down. And I don't know why. It seemed like totally outrageous, but maybe there's a way to approach it that people can see some reason and compromise.
Well, that's exactly what we'd want to talk to Quiet Communities about, because they track the kinds of objections that have succeeded to block this. It can be approached from many angles. Noise is one, and most people are unaware of the harm that comes from the noise side of it. Health harm, not just irritation and so forth. Anyway,
Certainly for not just for the neighbors, but for the guys wearing the backpacks. I mean, sometimes you see them without any kind of hearing protection, and those things are loud, and it's right next to your ears. And again, a lot of the people working for the landscapers are, people for whom English isn't their first language, and it's one of these things that I think and they tend to be young people, fairly young people. And, a lot of times I don't think people that age necessarily know that once your hearing gets damaged by excessive noise exposure, that's it. Your ears don't heal themselves. So, just from an environmental justice standpoint for the workers as well,
Sarah, if OSHA were properly funded, they could enforce the regulation that exists on the books that requires noise canceling earphones be used for those things.
Right. And a lot of times you do see them, but sometimes as I drive around, I see guys with the big backpack and no hearing protection. And
well, sometimes, and you can wear the things that go in your ear that might not be as visibly obvious. But Rick, I don't know if I misinterpreted what I heard you say, maybe in a hopeful sense, that the Quieter Communities group, it isn't just preaching to the choir, but they've got information to assist with how to get the kind of the naysayers on board, or to get things.
I think that's what we'd want to do. I mean, they have tons of research available on their website, quietcommunities.org. And, they stay on top of that issue and nationally, and the trends and what's worked in towns and so forth. That's what I think we'd want to do, is have a discussion. I don't think we want just a lecture on all the harms and evils. And I mean, you can read about that stuff. Yeah. It's well documented. And,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Saying connected to, the noise and the blow and everything. These landscaping companies, a lot of the folks in our neighborhood are professional landscapers. And they don't just come with one mower and one blower. They come with, 3 mowers, big, loud platform mowers, and 3 or 4 backpack blowers. They come, and it's an incredible amount of noise. But I think in kind of more connected to Brian's passion and concerns, what they're doing on these lawns, just to get rid of a few dandelions or a little clover, it's just ridiculous. And I don't, the education that's needed to help people understand, they don't have to nuke their lawns with all these chemicals just to get rid of a couple of dandelions. There are better ways to do it. If they want a lawn, they don't have to poison it. They can have a lawn, but they don't have to have, killer chemicals that just wash right off the lawn. I've heard people, what do you call them, stormwater specialists, they say a lawn is like green pavement, basically. That's what's happening. When it rains, everything's going off that lawn into the storm drains, and that's right into the lake, right into our waterways. So I don't know, there's a lot of education that needs to happen.
There is, and the landscaping companies are very alert to this in this area, and very resistant to it, because the homeowners don't know any better, and they want to keep it that way. And they want to give the homeowners what they want, and people who've never lived in a home with a lawn have the idea that the lawn should be pristine and cut like a good haircut, and they don't, so they're happy with the landscaping. It's keeping the customer happy. So certain amount of education.
The other issue is, the idea, if we want to stay competitive and so forth, we have to be able to come in and get out quickly. So we need the big, powerful machines, that, get in and get out, and then we can get more jobs done. So I think that's an issue that is going to be raised by the landscaping contractors. If you're gonna put me out of business, if I have to take longer to do a given lawn, I can do fewer lawns and I'm not gonna bring in as much money. And I think that is an issue that, that is gonna be raised.
Well, the electric, I've talked to Jeremy Marcetti about this, and he's pretty on top of where the electric equipment is for the town. And the town is starting to use them on the municipal things where they can. I think looking as prices come down on all the electric landscaping equipment, it's going to be, incumbent on towns to try to do what we're trying to do with heat pumps, which is to get deals in there that will make it easier for the landscaping companies to convert. If they realize that, they're spending a lot of time and money maintaining gas powered equipment, and the electric equipment, the only quibble they have with it is that so far it's expensive in some cases, and it doesn't last as long when you're doing a very big property, like the town is doing. It's hard to do that on certain big municipal fields, but it'll get there. So it's a matter of time. So it really is, getting a ban on them would be difficult. Educating people is a huge challenge, bandwidth, but getting some regulation about hours, days that you can do it, holidays, things like that. In other words, not going, finding out from quiet communities what's worked as a first step, and trying to raise awareness about a first step would be worthwhile. And it may take a while to get it done, but I'd be happy to be part of a, steering committee to try to get this done in town meeting.
Well, if you can make the connection, the initial connection, and have them come and speak to us, that would be great.
Yeah, we could also ask Wellesley. Wellesley made a big effort to get, some stuff on the books. They also did, by the way, they had a no-mow May that was fairly successful. So I could certainly get the Wellesley Sustainability Director to tell us what happened there. If I can't get anybody from quiet communities quickly, I know Phyllis Stearman pretty well. She's a very articulate woman and has done a great job in Wellesley with their sustainability committee. They have and she could tell us exactly what happened. And I'm sure she'd be willing to do that.
Sounds like you've got a speaker.
Yeah, I was going to say, we don't have a speaker lined up for next week. If you think you might be able to turn it around quickly, Rick.
I can ask her. Sure. I'll email her and ask her. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Brian, you had your hand up.
Yeah, as far as the noise from the landscapers and stuff, we're surrounded by homes here that 25% of them maybe are a fair share are using services, and we're constantly barraged with the noise. But the tree issue, I think, is much bigger. Number one, this is a tree city, and there's no mention of it. The tree warden doesn't seem to be really that involved in preserving the trees here. And my estimates are there's at least 10 tree service companies that are serving Natick. And of those 10 companies, I bet you in total, they're taking over 100 mature trees every week. And the trees that are getting planted, I think the numbers are much smaller than that. And so if you're sensitized to the noise, which we are, and all of a sudden you see these big trucks come in, which they've got top of the line 120-foot cranes, and they come in and take down these 100-foot trees in one fell swoop. And the noise that they make for an hour and a half or two while they disappear these trees it's a mental abuse as we hear it happen. And it's sickening to hear it and see how it's done. And there's no recourse. By the time they get here, you can't slow them down or stop them, and the way they go, and they're given deals. They're saying, oh, we're right here in the neighborhood. We'll pull over and get your place. Instead of $1,500, we'll do it for $5. And it's a self-perpetuating thing that the tree service company is a big thing. They're probably investing $1 million worth of equipment minimum to get going. And so they're out there selling it. And, a lot of people are buying it thinking, oh, gee, this is a deal. I'm going to pick up on that.
And I don't know what Are you suggesting, Brian, that people are just taking down trees for fun? I mean, every time I know it's because it's a safety issue and it's about to fall on the house and they were damaged. I can't
Yeah.
imagine paying that much money. It's expensive, even with these special deals. And I can't imagine anyone paying all this money just for no particular reason.
Well, kind of, it's infected. Somebody sees it happen to the neighbor next door. It's like, oh, we've got that big pine. If the wind blew right, it might hit our house. Let's get it out of there.
Yeah, right. I think they're being talked into. I had on my street a big tree that was taken down that wasn't near. I don't know. Maybe the owner decided they don't like the odds from the catalpa in the fall.
Yeah.
But it was a beautiful big tree. Must have been 70 feet tall, and the house looks so naked now that it's gone.
Yeah.
And we have drought, and the trees. I mean, they play a major role in keeping water in the ground and shading and you know, I'm seeing that happening, and I think that dynamic is going on. That they come and they knock on your door and say, we're in the neighborhood. If you have trees that want to come down, and that's in Lexington, they have a tree committee, and if you want to cut down trees, you have to go before the committee, and they decide whether or not it's something that needs to come down because they want to maintain the canopy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely the case that those are the two major reasons for taking trees down. The kind of the legitimate one is if the tree is diseased or it's got a dead branch or it is a safety hazard, as Martin. But to the point that Ricky and Brian, I think, are talking about, that people kind of are having this increasing attitude that, well, it just doesn't fit. And honestly, I'll offer a personal testimony. We have a huge pine tree in our backyard that it's probably 5 times the size or more of when we bought the house.
Probably more than that.
It doesn't fit with the rest of the trees, and Sarah and I were considering taking it down. There's nothing wrong with it, and thank God our 4 adult children kind of gently said no, that tree's got every right to be there, and so it remains, and now it's got a nice little birdhouse on it. So it's easy to fall. I guess I offer that only to say it's easy to fall prey to that mode of thinking, but we got to fight against it.
I was just going to add one thing. We live on the edge of the Framingham Woods, so Arthur Morency Woods. So 14-acre, it's beautiful, wonderful thing for us. Although on the edge of our property, there were 3 really big, and they were hazardous trees that would, they were dead or dying, almost dead. And the town of Framingham, thankfully, came in. They took them out, and the enormous one was probably 170 feet tall and massive, thing. And when they cut it down, you could see the rot and stump from the whole thing. So I mean, there are legitimate reasons for the trees coming down, but I think there is a fair amount of it that is sadly people don't want to rake leaves. They want just that green skirt. They want a very simplified landscape, and I think the trees. People, this woman, maybe Sarah, her, she lives in your neighborhood, Kathy Brannigan.
Yep,
right next door.
Right next door to us.
Yeah, Kathy's a great naturalist. She told me once that one mature oak tree has 535 different creatures that can use it as habitat. So
we were at their house for a summer event, I don't know, some number of months ago, maybe last year, and had the greatest time watching a raccoon just having a nice little nap in one of her trees.
First it was a mulberry tree, and first it gorged itself on mulberries. It was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
shoveling them in. I think it ate itself into a food coma,
Yeah.
and it was lying there with its limbs hanging off the branch afterwards. It was so funny. We watched it for probably an hour. It was hysterical. So
Yeah, well, we're living on the edge of the woods here. We have rabbits and squirrels and chipmunks and every kind of critter. We have turkeys, even deer. It's kind of an amazing thing. Not all the time, but we see a
Yeah.
fox once in a while.
Well, we are right at 10:30, which is kind of our extended soft end time. Been great discussion as usual. And possibly we can get quieter communities next week. If not that, I'm still holding out the idea of maybe we could go revisit the Garden of Hope at community or a church there, or maybe take a stroll over to the Ricky Ball Garden at
And they're almost right next to each other.
exactly.
right.
So yeah, we'll
So
give that
stay
some thought,
tuned.
and we'll see how the logistics work out. So
Before everybody leaves, I just want to give you a heads up. You may have received my email from Metro West Blue concerning our call that's going to be on, I think it's the 29th.
Yep.
And I had some response from someone who got the email and said that both of the links led them to the response. Oh gosh, sign up for being on the call. One should have been a contribute if you can't make it. And the other was the sign up for the call. So if you have that problem, let me know. We're trying to rectify that. But we hope that everyone will come to the call and find out about what's happening in Arizona. And our emphasis in Arizona is specifically on Native people who are spread out and who don't usually get contacted when it comes to receiving help for registration, voter registration, and we're trying to make a difference there. The same thing is with the Chicano population in Arizona. That is big. And again, because of the language barriers, they have problems when it comes to voter registration. And we are trying to make a difference there. So we strongly urge your participation in coming to the call. And if you can't make it to the call, please use the donate button, to help out in Arizona. And it should be a very interesting call. We'll have people on that call from the grassroots organizations that we're supporting, and they'll describe what they do. So again, thank you for participating, and I hope you'll all come.
Yeah, it's worthwhile.
Ricky.
thanks, Ricky.
Hey, Debbie, can you stay on for 1 minute? I have a quick question for you.
She hasn't actually been on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but maybe she will. All right.
Yeah.
Well, have a good rest of the day, everyone.